How do you know whether or not the insurance company's adjuster is going to give you the correct number?
Well, why can't I just rely on him because that's what he does every day?
Well, because they're a business. The reality is, majority of the time, the insurance company's not going to pay you for everything. They're going to pay you only for a small amount and hope that you're not going to come back.
Different from a personal injury is the homeowner entitled to get interest.
Insurance as not really being something that's going to make you whole anymore. They're going to end up with something that's much less.
How does a person know that they need an attorney for these?
Hey, I'm Tom Morgan with Morgan Law Group, and during this episode, me and my father are going to be talking about the current state of insurance claims and just the overall aspect of handling those in the legal profession. And so we welcome you and hope that you enjoy.
Using that benefit of the new electronic age, what exactly or how would you describe the areas of practice of your firm now, and how has the electronic age allowed you to practice outside of Dade County? Because as soon as you leave Dade County, you'd have to drive or fly or whatever. So how can you practice in these other areas now, and why?
Well, so my practice for many years was almost exclusive to first-party insurance claims. So hurricanes, fires, property damage stuff. And so for most years, that was Florida. And clearly over the years, we've seen storms hit other markets. But what we decided and needed to do was you can't rely on an event every year to be in the same place. So we started to look at expanding into some of the other markets, into Louisiana, into Mississippi, into other parts of the Gulf, Texas. Things I could not have done that expansion 10 years ago. And even when I started the expansion, the technology wasn't as good as it is now. So there was still some difficulties and some learning. But now the way Zoom is just, everybody knows how to use it. It's very easy. So for me to hire a lawyer in a market and ask them to be part of our firm, an extension of us to do the work, is much easier for them to sort of be seamlessly part of the firm. Our software is cloud-based. You pick up a computer, you get them set up on it. It's no different if they're down the hall. Everybody interacts in the office on Teams. So it's like a Zoom inter-office conversation. So I can say I want to talk to the trial team, and those who are not in the office that day will be on the Teams meeting, and you easily have a conversation with everybody as if you're in the same room. And so it's very easy now to do a lot of things, and it allowed us to expand, and I think allows us to still provide top service to our clients in each of the markets, because whoever's in that market is not only getting their local support staff, but they have the backing of the firm and what we do through all the technology. And so there's a multitude of people helping every lawyer out there that's part of our firm in regards to different aspects of the process. And so it allows us to reach out to the clients, answer their questions, get them signed up much easier. 99% of people expect that they're going to sign up on a DocuSign versus having a live, like the days of us having to mail a retainer to somebody and wait for it to come back don't exist anymore.
Yeah, that's a big change. I remember sitting in one of the bar committees, and one of the problems were lawyers having retainer agreements signed by clients, but presented to them by either a secretary or an investigator, and the bar frowned upon it. Now you have DocuSign. That's just
right.
Incredible. When you make reference to property or first party, for people that aren't lawyers, what are you referring to? Because when people see things on TV or written ads, they're always seeing either somebody charged with a crime, or they see somebody who has been in a car crash. Right. Is predominantly what you do when you make reference to first party just that, or something different?
No, it's different. So over the years, we still do personal injury. We do that area of practice, but the large portion of our practice is focused on helping people in regards to their insurance claims. So people who've been in, their property's been damaged or their business has been affected by anything from a water leak in the building or like a washer or overflow up to hurricane or fire, wildfires.
So it isn't all hurricanes.
It's not all hurricanes. It's anything that's affecting your property where you need assistance in regards to putting the documentation together and submitting to your insurance company, because most people have never had to put a claim in. And most people, if you've done a claim, it's probably been related to your automobile, which is very easy.
Yeah.
Because you take your car to the body shop. The body shop says, "Don't worry, we're a preferred vendor for Progressive or Allstate," and they're just going to get the work done. You're not really dealing with it, right? The body shop is negotiating with the carrier about how much can be done for the repair and how much it'll cost. You as the insured don't necessarily ever have to deal with that.
How does a person know that they need an attorney for these? If the fire comes and it burns your whole house down, do you just say, well, that's an act of God, there's nothing I can do? Or if a pipe breaks underground and seeps up and comes through your floor, and all of the tile flooring throughout your living room and dining room area is all now destroyed, how do you know this is something I need to consult an attorney with? Or, gee, that was just a bad break and I should sell the house or, dig it up?
I mean, clearly we would like to be involved sooner than later because it makes it for a cleaner process. But the reality is, what's going on in California recently with the fires. I mean, those homes that have been burned to the ground, the reality is for most of those people, there's not a need for a lawyer. They if they have insurance, they're going to submit a claim and the carrier's going to pay them. I mean, there's nothing to fight over. There's no property left. The instance where you need a lawyer generally is where you have some damage to the property. Let's take for a hurricane. Most people, you have your roof damaged. You know it's damaged. You know it's the hurricane, and you've got maybe a roofer or some other people are out there trying to tell you different values for what it's going to take, whether they have to replace the entire roof or they can do a patch job. And so you then have insurance adjusters going to come out there and do an evaluation. Well, the reality is, how do you know what is supposed to be the right price? How do you know whether or not the insurance company's adjuster is going to give you the correct number?
Well, why can't I just rely on him because that's what he does every day?
Well, because they're business. I mean, Dad, we did a lot of defense work. What our marching orders were in regards to handling the claims. So what I like to say is, for the small fee that you would have to pay out of anything you recover, at least you're getting a proper evaluation. Let us come out there. Let us bring out some experts that we think can do the evaluation and give you a good guideline as to where we think your claim should be. Because the reality is, unfortunately, majority of the time, the insurance company is not going to pay you for everything. They're going to pay you only for a small amount, what they can see, what they can justify at the point, and hope that you're not going to come back. You're going to accept that and walk away. And the reality is a lot of people do.
Can people in condominiums make claims, or is it just for homeowners?
No, listen, we represent associations, condo associations, which would be the structure itself and the common areas, but we also represent the condo owner. I mean, as an owner of a condominium, you're responsible for your interior. So if it's been damaged, a lot of times, the most common is somebody above you had a broken pipe of some sort, or they didn't turn off the water, leaks down, gets into your unit. That's easily a claim that falls under your insurance company for the interior aspects of your unit.
Now, with automobile accidents and to be specific, the firm does handle, we call those torts and personal injury claims, does handle those. In those cases, the fee is a contingency fee. In these cases where someone has hurricane damage or water pipe damage or some other damage that occurred in their home or their condominium, how do the fees get paid? Because certainly we're not working for nothing.
Up until just a couple years ago, it was under a fee statute. Now it is just like the torts. It is like a motor vehicle accident or slip and fall case. We are charging a percentage. So the dynamics of what we're charging, though, to try and be more fair to the client, because we do understand that this is money you need in order to repair your property versus in a personal injury case, a lot of times the damages you're seeking are sort of the pain and the suffering, which are sort of unknown. They have to be quantified in some manner, right? But in the homeowner situation or the business situation, we're charging a percentage. And so we have a scale as to what we call the preliminary, the claim process. There's a contingency amount. And then as the progresses, for the more need for us to be involved, that contingency increases. And that's really in every market now. I mean, the aspect of having a fee statute was down to essentially Florida being the last holdout, allowing for that, and it's now gone.
How do you see that as a benefit or detriment to the client?
I don't see much of a benefit. The unfortunate part is because we are now on a contingency aspect, I can no longer represent sort of the small claim anymore. I used to be able to represent that person who had a small loss in their kitchen and maybe their cabinets were damaged and it was, $5,000 to $10,000 type of claim. The resources that it takes to be involved, to represent that person, I can no longer really do when I'm working on a small contingency amount because it just doesn't pay for itself. It's very difficult for me to give the resources, advance the expenses that it takes to get the experts involved to help that person. And so right there alone, you have a large number of people that are not going to be able to get the assistance that they need or they could have gotten in the past. And we do get calls now from people who we've represented in the past, and they say, "Hey, I got a problem. I need you to help me." And I'm like, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you in this one because it's just not the value. So we have to kind of look for higher value disputes, number one, and that raises issues in regards to who's not getting representation. Where is it a benefit to the homeowner or the business? I guess the benefit is that they're going in knowing this is what they're going to pay out, I guess, at the end of the day, if they're successful. But reality is, I look at insurance as not really being something that's going to make you whole anymore. In most cases, it's going to sort of be your starting point to start the work back. Because if you have a policy of insurance that say you have a policy for $100,000, and tomorrow you get a major event like a hurricane that comes through and does extensive damage to your property, your damages are probably going to be, when you take into the aspect of needing architects or engineers or anything else to rebuild your property, in excess of that $100,000. So they're not going to be made whole again after they've paid myself and the experts and everybody else. They're going to end up with something that's much less, but at least it's something that they can put towards getting that work done. It's just a sad.
It seems that a lot of these cases are boiling down to, in many instances, battle of the experts over the value of what the loss was.
A lot of times it's battle over experts in regards to evaluation, in regards to what the costs are and the scope of, does something really need to be replaced versus patched and painted. But the big fight for, especially in hurricane type losses, is the engineering aspect of, is the damage to the property all related to the wind, or was this pre-existing, or was this, in instances where you have storm surge, was this more water-related damage versus the wind? Because your policy only provides for those damages related to the wind.
How do they handle the situation when there's a small amount of damage, say to a living room, some tile, but that tile runs throughout the house, and it's an old house. It's 35 years old, so you can't find that tile anymore. So how do you replace the living room where there's the damage when it's going to be different than all the rest of the house, the dining room, the kitchen, and all the other places?
First and foremost, most insurance companies will tell you that they can somehow harvest that tile from 30 years ago from some unknown quarry and match it. But the reality is you have that. Your policy provides you have matching. So if you take up a huge portion of your flooring, there's no way to go and fix that. I mean, so it really makes you have to tear out everything and replace it. And so, everybody says, well, that's just the way for you to get a new floor. Well, yeah, but the fact is that the insurance company knew what was there. They're charging you a fee for providing for replacement value. And if it's damaged, then you should be entitled to get it replaced. And so, if you upscale to something newer, they're not necessarily paying the full value of what's new. They're paying you a value on what you had. And so you would have to, on your own, make up the difference. And so that's an argument that comes into play is how much is the value of what was already there for that period of time. There is a depreciative value to it, and what you're putting in today. And so bring in the expert to create that argument and say, this is what we believe the value on what was pre-existing is, and this is what the overall cost is.
Got it. So
becomes very
in every
competitive.
instance, they don't have to live with a patchwork house because they had to replace unmatching tile in the
No, they don't
in the
have to
living
have
room.
terracotta run through 35% of the house and
Got it.
laminate through the rest.
But different from a personal injury, is the homeowner entitled to get interest on their damage from when the damage occurred until the case is either tried or resolved?
Yeah, the aspect of at least in Florida, there's a process in regards to determining what the interest is from the time of loss. And so when they make those payments, the carrier is expected to calculate that interest and make that payment in addition to the payment. And so when we get into disputes with them and it drags out for periods of time, and eventually if we get them to pay, calculation of that interest from then is something that gets included. I'm Tom Morgan with the Morgan Law Group. I want to say thank you for listening to this podcast of Trial and Error. If you want to find out more or you want to check out more podcasts, go to our website, policyadvocate.com, and stay tuned for more podcasts in the future.